Do you have a guardian angel? It sounds like a question for children, something you'd find on a greeting card or a cartoon. But here's what nobody tells you. Way more people than you think, serious, grounded, credible people, have had an encounter with something they cannot explain, and most of them never say a word about it because they're afraid of what you'll think. Today we go where most teachers won't, straight into the Bible, straight into the controversy, and by the end of this video, you will never dismiss this question again. Before we open the scripture, I need you to understand why this question matters. Because some of you right now are thinking, this is a little speculative. This feels like it's on the fringe. But here is what I've come to understand. How you answer this question changes how you move through the world. It changes how you pray. It changes how you face danger. It changes how you raise your children. It changes how you interpret the moments in your life where something shifted at the last second and you still can't explain why. So let's go to the Bible and let's be honest about what it actually says, and equally honest about what it doesn't. Here is the first thing Scripture makes absolutely clear. Angels are real. They are active, and their primary assignment, according to Hebrews 1 verse 14, is this: Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? All angels sent to serve on behalf of God's people. Now here is where it gets interesting and where most teachers get either too cautious or not cautious enough. Does each believer have a specific angel assigned to them? Matthew 18:10, Jesus is speaking, and he says this: See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father in heaven. Their angels, not just angels in general, their angels. Now scholars have debated this for centuries. Some say the Greek word "their" is collective, referring to believers as a group, not individuals. Others, including some of the most respected theologians in church history, read this as Jesus directly affirming that believers have angels specifically connected to them. John Calvin, not exactly a man known for being loose with Scripture, wrote this. He said he could not positively affirm that each believer has their own angel, but he added, and I want you to hear this carefully, I dare not deny it. He looked at the evidence, and he could not bring himself to say no. But Matthew 18 is not the only passage, not even close. Turn to Acts chapter 12. Peter has been thrown in prison. He's chained between two soldiers, scheduled for execution in the morning. The church is gathered somewhere nearby, praying through the night for his life. God sends an angel. The chains fall off. Peter walks out of the prison as the iron gate opens by itself. Peter finds the house where the church is praying and knocks at the door. A servant girl named Rhoda hears his voice, recognizes it, and in her shock and joy, she runs back to tell the others without even opening the door. And here is the moment I want you to sit with. The church, the very people who had been praying for Peter's release all night, hear that he is standing at the door, and their response is this: it must be his angel. His angel. Not just an angel, his angel. This is the first century church, people who walked with the apostles, who had direct access to the teaching of Peter and Paul and James, and their instinctive, immediate, unguarded response was that believers have specific angels assigned to them. That is not nothing. That is the living theology of the early church, caught completely off guard, and that is what came out. And there is one more passage, Psalm 91:11, written centuries before the New Testament and yet completely consistent with everything Jesus and the early church believed. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up so that you will not dash your foot against a stone. Command his angels concerning you, specifically, personally. The weight of biblical evidence here is not light. It is not conclusive enough to be dogmatic, but it is far too heavy to dismiss. Now I need to address the pushback, because there is real pushback, and it deserves a real answer. Some teachers say that the idea of a personal guardian angel is not biblical, that it was a Jewish tradition developed between the Old Testament and New Testament, borrowed from non-canonical writings like the Shepherd of Hermas, and then read back into Scripture. And here's what I will say. That critique is worth taking seriously. The Bible nowhere explicitly says you personally have one specific angel assigned to you from birth. That sentence does not appear in Scripture. And there's a danger on this topic that we need to name clearly. When people become more focused on their angel than on the God who sends the angel, something has gone wrong. The book of Revelation records the Apostle John falling at the feet of an angel to worship, and the angel immediately corrects him. Do not do that. I am a fellow servant. Worship God. Angels are not to be worshipped. Angels are not to be prayed to. Angels are not the source. They are sent by God. They serve at God's command, and every protection they provide ultimately comes from Him, not from them. Colossians 2:18 is a warning. Do not let anyone disqualify you through the worship of angels. So let me say this clearly. The question is not whether your angel is protecting you. The question is whether you trust the God who commands those angels on your behalf. That is where your faith must be anchored.
But here is what I also know. The people who have had these encounters, and there are more of them than you would ever expect, are not people chasing experiences. They are not people who went looking for something supernatural. They are ordinary people, in ordinary moments, at their lowest. They're most desperate. They're most alone. I want to share one account because it deserves to be heard. A woman, a child at the time, had lost her father to cancer at 7 years old. Her mother then suffered a devastating mental breakdown. She and her siblings were separated, raised by other families, her world completely shattered before she was old enough to understand it. One night, she went to sleep with a heavy heart, praying, asking God that the right direction would be made clear. The next morning, her bedroom was filled with what she could only describe as a brilliant light. At the foot of her bed, a dazzling white figure, clothed in what seemed to be a flowing white robe, seated calmly, completely present. She sat up to see it more clearly, and it immediately passed through the wall. What was left behind was a peace she had never felt before. Not just emotional relief, something deeper. Wounds that had lived in her heart since childhood, the grief, the abandonment, the questions, were instantly, quietly healed. And she never wrestled with those things again. Now you can be skeptical of that account. I understand. I'm not asking you to build your theology on one person's experience. But Hebrews 13:2 does not let us simply dismiss it either. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. So here is where I want to land. Does the Bible prove beyond all doubt that every single person has one specific angel assigned to them from birth? No, it does not, and I will not tell you it does. But here is what the Bible does say, with absolute certainty, beyond any debate. Angels are real. They are active. They are assigned by God to work on behalf of His people. They have intervened in ordinary lives throughout all of Scripture. The early church believed in them without embarrassment. Jesus Himself spoke about them. And Psalm 34:7 declares this: "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him, and He delivers them." That is military language. That is the language of a stationed, committed, purposeful protection surrounding the life of someone who belongs to God. So whatever theological conclusion you land on about individual guardian angels, let this be settled in your heart today. You are not navigating this life alone. You are not unprotected. You are not forgotten. Heaven is not passive about your life. If this opens something in you today, drop the word "encamps" in the comments. Let that be your declaration. And subscribe, because every week we go deep into the things of God that most people are afraid to ask out loud. You are not alone. You never were.